It was the first time in my adult life where I'd actually seen people on both sides of the aisle making speeches and sharing remarks about why me and my family mattered.
I want to move on to the tragedy that happened in Colorado, the Club Q shooting. It happened, not only was that a tragedy, but it happened on a Transgender Day of
Mm.
Remembrance. How prevalent is anti-LGBTQ plus violence, and what can Washington and communities who want to do something about it do to stop it?
We are seeing, well, first of all, I have to say, what happened at Club Q was devastating. Our lives were stolen in that event. And we need to remember that, to honor that, and continue to get all the resources to the Coloradans and the families that were impacted. And it also speaks to this broader moment that we're in where people are living in fear. We can't lose the reality that too many of our communities are living in an active crisis right now. There has been an incredible uptick in violence towards our communities in the last few years. Last year, 2021, was the deadliest year on record for trans lives. That's a reality of the world that we're living in right now. And it's not happening by accident. We are seeing real violence on the ground that's spurred by anti-LGBTQ plus political rhetoric that is extreme and cruel and vile, paired with political attacks on the ground that are taking away the dignity and humanity of our lives. So of course, this is resulting in real world violence. All of us have a role to play in this. I think any elected leader needs to be held to account for the words that they're saying and the policies that they're pushing. And we as a community need to stand up and do all that we can to create welcoming environments, whether that's in your workplace or in your school. We need to create a world where every LGBTQ plus person can experience the dignity and respect that they deserve as they're moving about this world.
The Respect for Marriage Act was recently passed in the House, and I know you were on Capitol Hill for that moment. Can you share what that experience was like and why this bill, soon to be law, is so important?
Oh man, I got to tell you, especially in the moment that it happened, it was surprisingly emotional for me. I was in the gallery with my wife and my son, who's 1 year old. And I'm not gonna lie, I love politics. I love advocacy. It's important for the people. But when you're watching it play out, it may not always be the most exciting thing to watch, right? Like nobody watches C-SPAN when they're trying to have a great Friday night. But sitting in the gallery, it was the first time in my adult life where I'd actually seen people on both sides of the aisle making speeches and sharing remarks about why me and my family mattered, why our love was valid and important. It had been so long since I had seen anything like that, especially in this world where the tragedy of Club Q had just happened shortly before, where we're seeing pediatricians being attacked and getting bomb threats or trying to offer gender affirming care. We're seeing so many ways that the opposition tries to make it seem like we are less than human. To see us validated in the halls of Congress was a powerful thing. So I'm really excited about this moment where we're of signing this bill into law. And I'm also clear that there's a lot more work for us to get done to ensure that my family truly can get the same rights and access to benefits as everyone else.
Despite the Respect for Marriage Act being passed, this would not provide a federal protection if the Supreme Court was to overturn Obergefell. How concerned are you that the Supreme Court could someday strike down marriage equality? I know that there's been some concern given Justice Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion in the Dobbs case.
Well, the RMA does three important things. First, it's a full repudiation of the Defense of Marriage Act, right, which was discriminatory and unconstitutional when it was signed into law in the 90s. Two, it ensures that no matter what this extremist Supreme Court does, that every legally married person will get access to the full range of federal benefits. And let's be clear, there's over 1,100 federal benefits that folks get as a benefit of being married. And that's everything from being able to see your partner in the hospital when they're sick, to being safe and secure in retirement, to the benefits to build the family that you want. All of that stuff is wrapped up into marriage. The third thing is that even if this extremist Supreme Court takes egregious steps and overrules Obergefell, it still ensures that if you are legally married and that marriage occurred, if you are legally married in the state of celebration, it ensures that if you are legally married in a state, that as you are traveling about this country, if you move to another state, that marriage remains valid. So those are three very, very important things. Now, again, there is so much more work to be done to ensure that we're eliminating discrimination that's legalized in our laws across the country. So the RMA is a really important step, but it definitely doesn't finish our fight towards freedom and equality.
And you talked a little bit about this case, but the Supreme Court is now heard a case about that could have ramifications on discrimination based in Colorado, a graphic designer expressing their religious freedom. What is your take on this case? Will there be ramifications if the court rules in favor of this web designer?
We don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do. So it does make me uneasy and put me on edge as they were, hearing the 303 creative case. And yes, if they side on the side of the designer and legalize discrimination, it does open the door for so many other ways for discrimination to go into effect across this country in a really dangerous way. In so many ways, we've already heard this case. This is Masterpiece Cake Shop 2.0, right? The First Amendment should not be manipulated in such a way that people are allowed to discriminate against members of our community.
And last question for you. As I mentioned, you are the new president of HRC. What's next for the organization? What should we expect from you as its new leader?
Look, if you just look at the last few weeks in our lives, for the LGBTQ plus community, we have experienced things that were unheard of in terms of remarkable accomplishments, like landmark pieces of legislation, things to really celebrate. And at the same time, in too many communities and states across this country, we have seen real and violent and deadly attacks on our people. This is a critical moment for the community where we are changing hearts and minds, but we can also change policy and laws to make sure that we can be safe, we can be celebrated, and we can be free no matter where we are. So I'm excited about this next chapter of the Human Rights Campaign because it's about just that. It's about fighting for every lesbian, gay, trans, bi, and queer person in this country and doing it without exception.